Welcome to the channel, I'm Amedio602, and today we're going to talk about the Chanpion Hill Vanguard Alpha. I'm going to quickly cover the rules of engagement, we're going to look at the heads-up display, or HUD, on the screen, then I'm going to go through 10 tips to help you win this game mode. Starting strong, let's talk about the ROE, the rules of engagement. As of the time of this recording, the only mode available was Duos. Trios is supposed to be coming out this weekend, with Solo mode coming out when the game launches this November. In Duo mode, there are 8 total teams, 2 each, so that's 16 total players, so it's going to be you and 15 other players playing. Each team gets a life pool of 12 lives, and when your 12 lives have expired, your team is out. There are 2 different ways to get extra lives. You can buy them, and you can find them in the match. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Jumping back to the rules of engagement, there are 4 different maps to play on, and it's always going to be you and your teammate against one other randomly selected team. Once your opponents have been selected, you're going to go into a team deathmatch style match with them for 60 seconds. The 60-second countdown timer is in the top middle of the screen, and you can definitely tell this is still an alpha. They've got to work out this particular display bug. Mine is covered up by the compass, but that's okay. I'm sure Sledgehammer is going to get that fixed before release. Once your 60 seconds are up, you're going to go up against another team, and you are occasionally going to be thrown back into the center of the arena for the buy station. Throughout the matches, you're going to be earning cash, and you can use that cash at the buy stations. At the buy station, you can buy new weapons, tactical and lethal equipment, score streaks, and perks. The game keeps going, rotating on random maps against random teams until all teams except one are out of lives. There's one other way to end the game, and that is by purchasing the V2 rocket for $25,000 at the buy station. That wraps up the rules of engagement. Now let's move on to the heads-up display. The HUD is pretty standard for Call of Duty. There are only a couple of unique things for this mode. As I mentioned before, in the top center you've got the timer for the current round as well as the compass. On the top left you've got the minimap. By the way, this minimap does not show enemies that are firing, suppressed or unsuppressed. The top right shows how many kills you've gotten so far since the beginning of the game. The bottom left shows your team in blue and the enemy team in red, along with your number of lives remaining. The bottom right of the screen shows your total amount of cash, your currently equipped weapon and tactical and lethal equipment. If you've upgraded your weapon at all, that's going to be displayed on the bottom right of the screen underneath your weapon. If you have any armor plates equipped, they're going to also be displayed in the bottom right. That's a big change for Warzone players who are used to looking at the bottom left to see their armor. Now that you've got a pretty good idea how the game mode works and what the HUD looks like, let's talk about 10 tips to help you dominate in Chanpion Hill. First off, and I can't believe I have to say this every year, but you need to turn off all the blur options in your game settings. Weapon motion blur and world motion blur are both on, and they make this game look absolutely awful. Both should be disabled. Next, I'd recommend checking your system settings to see if HDR is enabled. With HDR enabled, I was having a hard time seeing anything on the map, and I felt like everything was just too dark. If you have HDR enabled, I would recommend disabling it through the system options of the PlayStation, and then increasing your brightness to 55 or 60, whichever looks best on your monitor. You don't want to crank your brightness all the way up to 100 because it's going to hurt your visibility more than it helps, but I felt like 50 brightness was just way too low. Next, remember that we're using the Modern Warfare engine. Tactical sprint and mounting are still things in this game, and you should be using them in Vanguard Chanpion Hill. Something that Modern Warfare didn't have a whole lot of was destructible environments. You can shoot through and destroy lots of different cover in this game, and that's something you should definitely be taking advantage of to win your gunfights. The next tip is pretty obvious, but definitely make use of the buy stations whenever you get a chance. Before the game starts, you're going to spawn in with $500. You can use that to purchase a spy plane or replace one of your starting weapons. Speaking of cash and buy stations, let's talk about how much cash you can earn for different things in Chanpion Hill. The most obvious way to collect money is to pick up the piles of cash on the ground. Each of those piles is worth $100. You also earn $100 for killing an enemy player, $500 for first blood, and $600 for wiping an enemy team. When you kill an enemy, they can also drop plates and cash, so keep an eye out for that. Speaking of armor plates, that's also one of the other things you can buy right off the rip. It's $250 to buy a full set of 3 armor plates. Unfortunately, once those armor plates are cracked, there's no way that I've found to replenish them other than running over dead enemies. The alpha spawns in all players with one of 2 random loadouts, and everyone in the game gets the same random loadout. Those 2 loadouts are the MP40 and the Thompson. Because both of these were submachine guns, I found myself buying assault rifles more often than not. And as of the time of recording this video, my favorite weapon so far is the bar. By the way, when you buy a gun, it will replace whichever gun you're holding, so make sure to swap to your pistol before purchasing a gun if you intend to keep your starting submachine gun. My next tip is to upgrade your weapons. The weapon upgrades are fairly cheap, and for the bar at least, you get a really nice long-range scope, and that really helps with those longer range engagements. While playing this game, it's useful to keep track of how many lives your team has compared to the enemy teams. Each time a new round starts, there will be one extra life token somewhere in the middle of the map, and I'd recommend going for that if you feel like you can safely get it. And that takes me to my final tip, which is to always be on the lookout for loot on the ground. Whether it's an extra life in the middle of the map, cash on the ground, or loot from a dead enemy, there's a ton of loot to be had in Call of Duty Vanguard. And if you're interested in helping out the channel, I've got Amazon affiliate links to the game in the description down below. If you're not ready to pre-order the game yet, that's fine. I've got a couple of other videos on the screen right now for you to enjoy instead. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed today's video, and subscribe to the channel for more Call of Duty Vanguard videos in the future. And as always, thank you very much for watching.